we find ourselves today here on All Saints Day, powered up and ready to go. And how perfect is it that the timing for us to begin a new theme of November, which is about being compassionate conduits, right? Being compassionate conduits. Living as a compassionate conduit is our theme for the month. And today our title is Divine Authority to Choose. Divine authority to choose. And how perfect, again, this timing as our nation moves into the last few days of this critical, important choice that is before us, right? This election, the most consequential election of our lifetime, very likely. And it's a choice. I don't know about you, but it's I have a bit of ease actually going into this week. I thought there would maybe be some tension and some anxiety, and some people may be experiencing that. But for me, there's a bit of ease. I've been put at ease by seeing the number of people participating in early voting, right? Exercising that choice, that authority to choose, and the groundswell of energy that has been built, regardless of what they're voting for or who they're voting for. There is a groundswell of participation. Right? Engagement. And engagement is the key to our spiritual evolution. Engagement is the key to our awakening, right? It doesn't, as we'll discuss today, there are lots of choices we can make in our engagement, right? But the choices that we make don't matter as much as engagement itself. Because when you are involved in the unfoldment of your soul, and the unfoldment of your destiny, in truth and spiritual reality, you cannot make a wrong choice. Come on, talk to me, somebody. You cannot make a wrong choice. It can look like a wrong choice. You can make a bad choice. You can make a choice that maybe isn't for your highest good. You can make a choice that doesn't feel good. You can make a choice that maybe doesn't work well for you or for others, but you cannot make a wrong choice. Every choice is actually a part of the divine unfoldment of your soul's purpose and our collective soul purpose. We're going to get into that a little bit today. If that isn't making complete sense to you right in this moment, that's okay. Hang on just a moment, okay? So I honor the fact that there is a divine choice taking place in the universe. And it cannot be a wrong choice. It can only be a choice that serves our evolutionary good. And so I'm coming into this with a little bit of ease, but I must say that it feels like more than just a choice about who resides at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, right? It's a choice about character. It's a choice about temperament. It's a choice about compassion and empathy. And it's a choice about whether or not we are a diverse nation bound together by a common purpose, or whether we are a loose band of rugged individuals left on our own to struggle and to strife and to look after our own, pitting ourselves against those that are also competing for resources. And I would submit to you that this election is ultimately about and is a reflection of our own conscious evolution. That it is an evolutionary bifurcation point of us as a species. And before I get too far into it here, I want to let you know that there's something happening tonight. My dear friend, Reverend Sarah Nichols, who I've served on the Spiritually Motivated Social Engagement Committee for Centers for Spiritual Living with, is putting together an election eve spiritual ritual for some cleansing and some healing and some releasing, and some wonderful people, including our friend, Reverend Mike Hirioka, Reverend Masando, and other dear colleagues of mine. You can see it there. It's 4:00 Eastern time on Facebook. We'll post this again on our Facebook page so you can see it. It's on there, the page of her spiritual community, and maybe we can put the link in the comment feed as well. So if you're looking for something this evening as a sort of spiritual ritual to engage in, to kind of prepare your mind and heart for this week, I would highly encourage this. All of the people involved are top-notch people that I love to listen to and pay attention to in this movement. And I know that what they put together is going to be really rich and rewarding. So check that out. All right, now that was my that was my election speech there. Now I want to go back to this broader idea of choice, divine authority to choose. Right, that this moment in history is about our evolutionary consciousness, as is every moment that we find ourselves in. And we find ourselves in a moment that looks, on the surface, it looks dualistic, right? It looks like it's this or that, and it looks like this polarity and this tension that we have been in for some time. And some of us are looking for some relief of that tension, right? It looks dualistic on the surface, but at the core, it's really about our evolutionary path. And the evolutionary path is something that we cannot stray from except only in perception, right? The only way that you can stray from your evolutionary path is in perception, right? And so it is there in perceptual reality where we are called to be masters of co-creation, gifted with the power to choose to be in perceptual awareness of our own evolutionary unfoldment, or to choose to be in a perceptual awareness of division and strife and us and them and this and that duality. But it's a choice. It's a choice of perception. But beyond the perception, at the core of the spiritual reality, you're never off of your evolutionary path, right? Let me break it down to you this way, right? We've all had multiple relationships in our lives, I'm sure, right? And for those of us engaged in relationship right now, I'm sure that you would say that the relationship that the romantic relationship that you're currently in is indeed the best one. It's indeed the one that was made for you. It's indeed the right one, right? I hope you'd all agree with me in affirming that, amen, right? But you made other choices previously, and they weren't really wrong choices, but they were choices that were necessary for your divine unfoldment in order to step into this perfect moment, right? So you get to look at your partner. If you're watching the broadcast with your partner right now, you get to say, thank God for all of the people that you were with before me, right? And thank God for all of the people and all of the choices that I made before I made this one, because they all fed the evolutionary unfoldment of this perfect moment. You're never off track in your evolutionary purpose. You're only wrapped up in a particular perceptual reality that you get to become more conscious of. Amen? And so let's go even further now into this awareness, right? Because one of the things that defines us as a species is that is this notion of choice, right? That we are always at choice, always at choice. It's one of the keys to the liberating notion of our teaching, right? As I call it, a liberation theology. Why is it liberating? Well, because it teaches us that we are always at choice, always. And so we have been given, as the title would indicate today, a divine authority to choose, right? A divine authority to choose. What does that mean, divine authority? Well, there are a few different ways that you could approach understanding that divine authority. One might be through the religious stories, through biblical text, and through the sacred stories in Genesis, for example. Right? God created, right, the heavens and the earth and the air and the land and the water, and in that Genesis creation story, God imbues and infuses each level of creation with animals and creatures and life forces that have the capacity to recreate after their kind, right? The birds reproduce after their kind. The animals on the earth reproduce after their kind. The fish in the water reproduce after their kind. The plants and the fauna reproduces after its kind. And you and I, as Adam, first man, male and female, androgynous, both created from the dust of the earth, are given the divine authority to create after our kind, which is God kind, because we're created in the image and likeness of the divine itself. Or you could take the more scientific viewpoint, if you chose, that says that you and I are the byproduct of millions of years of stardust spinning and hurling through space and exploding and birthing and rebirthing and in cataclysmic cosmic awareness, and finally formed in this clay, in this dust, in this bone and sinew and blood and tissue, stardust looking back at itself, right? With the capacity to choose and to think and to act and to replicate the intelligence of the universe through our own mind and consciousness. Or maybe you want to take the more philosophical approach, right? That says that there is the thought and that you and I have the capacity to think, but there is also the thought behind the thought, right? The thinker that thinks the thought. And then there's that which, if you want to go even further, there's that which chooses the thought that the thinker thinks. And you and I can contemplate that. We can have thoughts, but we can think about our thoughts. And we can think about the thing that is thinking the thought. And we can think about the thing that chooses the thought to think. You see? And raise ourselves up into greater awareness of non-local identity, of the I am, of pure consciousness, and contemplate the giftedness that we have been given, this divine authority to choose, to think, and to be, you see. And so however you want to shape it, we are always at choice. We are always in this divine evolutionary impulse to grow and to expand and to reflect. In fact, our liberation is tied up in our understanding of our power to choose. Divine authority is granted to us, and we must make a choice to wake up, to be a part of our evolutionary process. Adam and Eve choose to eat the fruit, right? Cain and Abel choose to break the covenant of humanity and of togetherness, right? It's a bad choice, right? We could say that Adam and Eve made a good choice to wake up, to participate in the naming of the world, etc. Cain and Abel make an unhealthy choice, right? A choice that creates murder and blood and all the things that unfold from that. Moses chooses to wake up and connect with the oppression of the other, and to identify with the other, and to spark his own liberating path that leads him to free others from captivity and bring a whole group of people, the Israelites, to the base of the mountain to be in the presence of the divine itself, who then those individuals choose to have a mediator rather than the direct experience of God. So you see, we're always at choice, and sometimes we're choosing alignment and sometimes we're choosing non-alignment, but we're always at choice and participating in the evolutionary unfoldment, you see. Or maybe you like the more Eastern-based stories. Buddha, before he's the Buddha, but when he's the prince in the palace, gifted with every thing he could possibly ask for, he makes the choice to go beyond the wall of the palace and to peer into the hearts of men and women and to engage with the suffering of the world. He makes a choice to engage his own evolutionary understanding of the world around him. And as we have been speaking for the last couple of weeks, using the metaphor of the story of Arjuna in the Gita, that he makes the choice to confront the polarity of duality standing right in front of him on the battlefield. When I was a kid, My favorite kind of books were these books that were called Choose Your Own Adventure books. Did anybody out there? Come on, give me a heart or a thumbs up or something if you had to choose your own adventure books, or if your kids had to choose your own adventure books, right? They were the great books you're reading, and then you got to the end of the chapter, and then it was like, now what do you want the hero to do? What do you want the character to do? And go to this chapter if you choose this, go to that chapter if you choose that. And the story had different endings, 3 or 4 different endings in one book. I loved those, right? Because it gave me the power to choose how I wanted it to unfold, right? In the wonderful book, The Power of Decision by Raymond Charles Barker, the opening line of the book, which, by the way, I think is probably the best opening line that any New Thought author has ever written in any spiritual book ever. That's a big statement. The best opening line of any spiritual book ever written is the opening line in Power of Decision by Raymond Charles Barker. If you're familiar with the book, you may even be familiar with the line, because it's hard to read that book and not have this one stick with you. The opening line says, man's ability to act unintelligently in a universe of intelligence is amazing. That's the sentence. That's the opening line. Man's ability to act unintelligently in a universe of intelligence is amazing. Wow. Yeah, absolutely, right? It's absolutely amazing. He goes on in that chapter to say that the trouble results when unintelligent factor is introduced into a field of intelligent activity. Trouble begins when an unintelligent factor is introduced into a field of intelligent activity. He says that the universe is a field of intelligent activity, that the divine, that God, that spirit, whatever we want to call it, is a field of perpetual, ongoing, replicating, intelligent activity. But we may choose, through our conscious or unconscious engagement, to introduce unintelligent processes or factors into a field of intelligence. He says that some of those unintelligent things are worry and fear and hate and resentment. These are unintelligent factors that disturb the flow of intelligence in the field. You see, we have divine authority to choose, and the universe has the divine responsibility to respond to the choice that we make. Let me say that again. We have the divine authority to choose, and the universe has the divine responsibility to respond to the choice that we make, such that we are always in covenant with each other. We're always in relationship with one another. And so one of the ways we, in the spiritual context, talk about the way in which the universe responds to us is we say that the universe is always saying yes. The universe is always saying yes to our thinking. And you know, it's interesting. When I think about that, I think the universe is always saying yes. I don't always say yes to my son, William. I don't always say yes to my son, Josh. I don't always say yes to my partner. I don't always say yes to the requests, the demands, the things that are asked of me. In fact, we know in our personal development that part of self-empowerment is learning that no is a complete sentence, right? And learning boundaries and all that. But the universe, I like to say, is a perpetual giver, right? And it's always saying yes. Why? Because it's always saying yes to our unfoldment, to our growth, to our expansion, to our learning, even if we have decided, right? The reason it always says yes is because we've been given divine authority to choose, and we must follow through with the consequence of that choice. So the universe always says yes. And then, as Ernest Holmes says, the law of mind gives the thinker exactly what he thinks into it. Gives the law of mind gives the thinker exactly what he or she or they think into it. Why? because it is exactly what is required of our growth, because it corresponds or has relationship with the thought that we chose, the request that we made, the idea that we had, the belief that we held. The response must be in direct correlation with that because it is a relationship. The universe is not random. It says, you thought this, so here's the experience of more of that. And so we learn to wake up, to gradually become more conscious, more aware, more intelligent in our choice making, and more engaged with the response that's coming back to us, such that we might make better decisions. Are you with me? Have I laid the groundwork for today? All right. So with that in mind, let's even go a little bit deeper. Let's step back and try to understand how we can exercise divine authority and become more compassionate conduits for love and generosity in the world. There are 4 basic kind of spiritual ideas that I want you to hold on to. For me, they are sort of the summary, the distillation of all of the New Thought, Ancient Wisdom that we study and teach. If I were to describe SLCA or Centers for Spiritual Living or the New Thought movement in a distilled, compact way, I would say it's really about these 4 things. 1, consciousness is all that there is, right? Consciousness is all that there is. Consciousness is always unfolding. Consciousness is always responding. Consciousness is everything, right? 2, we are on a spiritual path, and that there are no exceptions to that. You're on a path, I'm on a path, everyone's on a path, everyone's on the path, everyone. And our job is to focus on our own path, right? As the song would say and remind us, to row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, right? Focus on your path. Focus on your evolutionary process. Focus on your awakening. Don't focus on somebody else's path. They're somewhere else on the path, but they're on the path, right? Whether they're ahead of you or behind you or next to you or on a different, completely different mountain, doesn't matter. It's not your job to think about that. Your job is to think about your path. 3, we are all evolving. Consciousness is everything. We're all on the path. 3, we're all evolving. Everything is evolving because it is the nature of spirit to evolve, to grow, to expand, to express more fully itself through that consciousness and through that path. And 4, spiritual practice. Our learning of affirmations and meditation and affirmative prayer and forgiveness work and visioning and all of the things that we do as spiritual practice are the measure of our growth. In other words, how do we measure our growth along the spiritual path? Through spiritual practice, through engagement, learning, and increasing our capacity to use tools for personal and global transformation. Are you with me? Yeah? 4 things, very easy. Consciousness is everything. Everyone's on the path, no exceptions. Everything is evolving, and spiritual practice is the measure of our growth. That's it, right? And so I want to kind of use that as a lens through which we view today. What does it mean that we are all expanding, learning, growing, adapting to our environment, choosing the world in which we live, etc.? As we choose, the law responds to us and gives us back exactly what we've thought into it. We already know that. But what we also know is that sometimes we get tired of choosing, right? In this way, that consciousness is everything and that we're all on the path and that we're always evolving. Our mind is engaging with the world and with our perceptual reality. We're always choosing. And that choosing is the way in which we create our reality, right? But sometimes we're not always consciously creating. Sometimes we're unconsciously creating. Sometimes we're asleep to the process of creation that is happening. We say that we're either creating, promoting, or allowing, right? You're either, at any moment in time, you're either creating, promoting, or allowing. Why? Because you can't always consciously create all of the time, because the avenue through which it works, which is your brain, it operates through your mind, but your brain is a muscle, and your muscles get tired. And they've actually studied this in universities now about our process, decision-making processes. And they say that actually our brain acts like a muscle, and it gets tired. And it has the capacity to only make so many what they call executive function decisions per day, right? Now, they've been studying this in universities for the last several years, but all they had to do was ask a single mother, right? Or a stay-at-home parent, right? And all of the juggling, and then the other spouse comes home, or the kid asks one more question at the end of the day, and it's a simple question, right? It's like what's for dinner, or are we going to do this tomorrow, or mommy, can I have this, right? And the response, right, which is too much information and blow up occurs, right? I've been the stay-at-home parent for the last couple of months since this pandemic, so I understand this very well, right? There are moments where it's just like, my brain is full. I have made too many executive function decisions in the house, and I can't bring myself to think of one more thing, right? Because our brains get tired. Our mind is always open to possibility, but our brain is a muscle, just like the rest of our muscles, if we were working out, need rest, right? And we are bombarded with a cacophony of choices and information to make. That's why you see some people, like Steve Jobs, for example, when he was executive of Apple, he wore that black mock turtleneck, long sleeve, and jeans every day, right? Why? Because it takes an executive function decision out of your day, what to wear, how to match the tie and the jacket and the shoes and the belt. Like, let's just eliminate that. Let's just start the day with, we don't have to make that executive function decision. Some people, high functioning executives, have the same meal every morning, or a shake, or something else. So again, to reduce the amount of executive function decisions, so that they reserve that power of their brain to make those decisions where it really counts, right? I have a confession to make, that when the pandemic started, and there was some of this social unrest happening with some of the Black Lives Matter and Rashard Brooks and so on and so forth, I thought, I've got the collar, I've got the black shirt and the collar, and I have a purple one too, because I'm called the bishop in the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries. So I've got those shirts and collars, and maybe I should just go to doing that. It's easy, it's simple. I could do it as sort of an act of solidarity for more peace and justice and all of that. And I was this close to making that decision, but I thought you all would freak out. You might tune in on Facebook and go, "Oh, we've got the wrong channel." It is, so that's why I didn't do it. And I really enjoy still dressing up and putting things together. But if I ever make that decision, you'll know why. It's not about trying to be more spiritual or holy. It will be about trying to reduce the amount of executive brain function decisions. So all of that to say, right? Therefore, we are asked to engage in our own evolutionary process. We learn to choose. We learn to choose to think about the choices that we're making, to evolve in that. But even before we can begin to choose better thoughts, we actually have to make another decision that sometimes goes unnoticed and unconscious, but it's a critical decision for our evolutionary growth. And that decision is to, what I call, come out from among them, right? It's the decision to not participate in victimhood. It's the decision to not be trapped in duality. It's the decision that Moses made when he saw the Israelite being abused by the centurion. He chose to side with the oppressed rather than with the oppressor, even though he was raised in the house of the oppressor. Right? Something in him stirred and said, those are my people. So he chose to come out of the hypnotic nature of the environment in which he was in. Ooh, come on, somebody, I'm preaching now. He chose to come out from among them and say, I'm siding with the oppressed because those are my people, and I'm deciding to activate my own liberation. I know who I am, and because I know who I am, I know who these people are, because we are all connected. You got to choose to come out from among them. It's my favorite joke to use from the pulpit. I learned it years ago from Michael Beckwith, which is that long ago there was a young man who visited a church, one of those fire and brimstone churches, and the pastor was an elderly man, and all the congregants were elderly, and he got up and he put his Bible, his big Bible, thumped it down on the pulpit and said, 20, 30, 40 years from now, every member of this congregation is going to be dead. And the whole congregation shook in fear and trembling, except the young man who was visiting, and he was sitting in the back, and he had a big smile on his face. And the pastor saw this, and so he thought, well, maybe he didn't hear me, or maybe he's so young, maybe I need to. So he said it again. He said, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now, every member of this congregation is going to be dead. And you have to be worried about your soul and your salvation and where you're going and what's going to happen. And they all shook and trembled in fear. And the young man sat there with a big smile on his face. And so the pastor called him out. He said, you, young man, don't you understand? Every member of this congregation 50, 60 years from now is going to be dead. You got to be worried about your soul and your salvation. What do you have to say for yourself? And the young man stood up and he said, Pastor, I'm not a member of this congregation. Right? He had come out from among them. He had come out from the collective consciousness of worry and dread and fear and doubt and scarcity and lack and limitation. And he said, no, I'm not one of them. Right? So that's the first decision we make, so that we can, from that place, set ourselves on a path of unlimited thinking, of choosing our good, of setting our course for our day, of making that executive decision in the morning rather than reacting to all of the things that are coming at us from the world. Oh, this morning I get up and I think, oh, I've got this to do and that to do and that to do. And I wonder what's going to happen with the thing in the election. And oh, I wonder if what, and all of these things are coming at you. But instead you push all of that away and you start your day and you say, no, today, I know that God is for me. Today, I know that God is good all of the time. Today, I know that I am one with the divine creative power that brings to me every good experience, every resource, every insight, I know today I choose happiness. I choose health and well-being. I choose prosperity. I choose God as my fortress. Today, I choose, you see, and you set an executive functioning pattern in your brain that then sends out a wave to the world. You're no longer responding to the world is responding to you because you've set the course, you see. Ernest Holmes says in the Beverly Hills Lectures, he says, the moment that you step out of the ordinary ranks, the moment that you step out of the procession that moves endlessly down the aisles, you are in the spotlight of evolution. Your own choice has decided you, and you are no longer going to think as others think. Again, the moment you step out of the ordinary ranks, the moment that you step out of the procession that moves endlessly down the aisles, you are in the spotlight of evolution. Your own choice has decided you, and you are no longer going to think as others think. And so we set ourselves on the path. But setting ourselves on the path is just the beginning, right? It's just the beginning. Yes, because we are creating with our thoughts, we're creating, we're promoting, we're allowing, right? And as I said, sometimes we promote things in our life. We don't create it necessarily, but we promote it because we repeat what others have said. We repeat what others in self-talk. We repeat what others have said about us, positively or negatively. We repeat what other people are saying about the news or whatever the narrative is in the cycle around us. And when we're repeating the narrative of others or the narrative of the world, we're promoting, right? We're not consciously creating it, but we're promoting what's already been created and put into motion. So sometimes we're consciously creating, sometimes we're unconsciously creating through promoting, and sometimes we're just allowing. right? We're allowing when we have our executive function has got to that capacity, can't handle anymore. And we say, you decide. You decide what's for dinner. You decide where we're going tonight. You decide you decide. I can't, right? And there are so much information that's bombarding into our mind field these days, our conscious awareness, that we choose to allow other people, in other words, delegate our divine authority and say, you decide, because I can't function anymore, right? So we got to be very clear about our capacity to discern for ourselves, because our executive function is limited, but it can be maximized. And so, as we develop further down the road, we increase our collective compassion to the world. And we do this because with every choice that we're making, the universe is saying yes to us. And as it says yes to us, the universe gives us more conscious awareness. Let me say that again. The more and more that we make conscious choices, the more and more the universe responds by giving you conscious awareness. Whew. That's worth its weight in gold right there, folks. I want you to know, the more and more you make conscious decisions about who you are and whose you are and what you are and your attitude and response to the day, the more and more you make conscious decisions, the more and more the universe brings to you conscious awareness. Your conscious awareness goes up, and suddenly you're aware. I'm not just aware of my personhood, but now I'm aware of the I am nature of who I am. I'm aware of the thinker that thinks the thought, right? Now I make conscious decisions from that place. Now, more conscious awareness is brought to me. Now, I'm not just aware of me, and I'm not just aware of the I am that resides in me. Now, I'm aware of everyone and everything. Now, I'm aware of the context in which I live. Now, I'm aware of the ways in which the world views me and sees me. And now, I'm aware of the way the world views and sees others who don't look like me or don't pray like me or don't vote like me. Now, I'm aware of a greater level of the patterns that are in place in the world. I'm aware of as the Buddha was when he left the temple, right? He became aware of the suffering of others, as Moses did when he set out on his journey. He became aware of the suffering of others. You become aware of your social surroundings, and you therefore activate a cosmic ignition switch to become a compassionate conduit for good in the universe. Because now it's not just you on the field. Like Arjuna standing in that battlefield, it's not just you. It's you and your family on this side and your family on that side. It's you and the suffering of others. It's you and those who have and those that don't have. It's you and the capacity to see the patterns that have been set in place by humanity that have kept everybody down. But suddenly you are at a place where you can see it, not just for yourself, but for everyone. Because your conscious awareness has grown because you've continued to make conscious choices. Are you with me this morning? Ooh. And so the steps to becoming a more compassionate conduit on the planet at this time are very simple. I want to give them to you now. The steps for becoming a more compassionate conduit on the planet is to understand the power of choice. To look, number one, understand the power of choice. Number two, to look at the patterns with soft eyes, to notice the patterns that are happening and to look with soft eyes. And three, to understand that your growth is wedded in relationship with what's unfolding, not in judgment of it. Ooh. Your growth is wedded in relationship, not in judgment. That's why we look with soft eyes, because when we see the patterns, we remember everyone's on the path. It's not for us to judge who is where on the path. It's us to look with soft eyes and to therefore, out of that place, make more conscious choices that then not only benefit me, but you see, now that I'm aware of others, I make more conscious choices that benefit everyone, that benefit the planet, that benefit people of color, that benefit women and children, that benefit everyone. You understand what I'm saying? So as we grow from the little self, small s, to the capital self, the I am, to finally the social self, the aware self. As we grow from the self to the social self, we are led on a path of awakening that boldly and radically dissolves all illusions of separation and division and false dichotomies of us and them. Oh, I want you to hear what I'm saying. I'm going to bring it home right now. And I know we got to move on. I want you to hear this. As we make more conscious decisions, we are led on a path of radical awakening that boldly and radically dissolves all illusions of separation and division of false dichotomies of us and them. And we choose to see with soft eyes because we understand that we cannot go beyond. We cannot go any further beyond our own image, self-accepted image. And so our growth is right where we are so that we may grow for the rest of the planet, you see. And just so we're clear, as this awakening begins to happen, this awakening never leads to an insight of superiority, right? It never leads to an insight of superiority. It's never, now I see I'm awake and others aren't, and I'm awake and I can see how others have been manipulating us, and there's some secret group over here that's controlling the government, and I'm awake that these other people are trapped in ego drama, and that means this, this, and this. And no. If you are on a path of spiritual awakening, it awakens you with soft eyes to see the patterns and to reflect back on yourself what is yours to do. It never leads to an insight of superiority. That's not awakening. That's hiding. That's not awakening. That's hiding. That's hiding in a sense of separation that lifts you up and makes you less responsible for the patterns that are taking place on the planet. Therefore, in order to change the world, to heal the world, or to reveal the world that Spirit has imprinted upon us, we must be willing to grow into the vision. We must be able to be the place where it is made real. We must be able to be the place where we are practicing inclusivity, compassion, and love and justice for everyone. There is, hear me folks, there is no secret decoder ring. There is no special club. There is no shiny, polished BS of us and them. That's a belief system, by the way. There's only open, compassionate conduits that say, oh, I see. I see what's happening here. I see that some are choosing division and fear. I see that some are choosing awakening. I see that I can make more conscious choices. I see that in this moment, I'm given the opportunity to make a conscious choice that helps others awaken, not by dividing or judging others, but by simply doing what is mine to do, you see. To wake up and say to yourself, God knows me as an intelligent vehicle of its idea. And therefore, I know myself as a vehicle in the mind of God, in the God's expression, and that idea is of love and of peace and of wholeness and of justice for everyone. Oh, my friend Lola Wright posted it this way this morning on her Instagram. She said, we must get honest about our wild connection to one another. We must feel that sacred responsibility of tending to that connection. You and I have a unique mission, a soul's purpose to contribute and to make. And if we could step into our fierce and loving selves, stop seeking validation and approval and affirmation from a system that was never designed to support our awakening, then we could claim, align, and embody the glorious expression of life that we are each meant to be. That, in and of itself, is a protest to the system. And she says, your purpose is your protest. Hallelujah. Let's just take a breath right here. We're on a journey this month of understanding what it is to be compassionate conduits of love and justice and peace. And so right here and right now, I speak an affirmative word for our nation, for this election process, and for the continued expanding, opening heart and mind of every citizen of this land that has chosen to get up and to get on their feet and to stand in line and to engage in the process And I know that there is a great healing, a great reckoning, a great revealing that is being asked to come forward at this time and place. It is not about dividing us. It is not about separating us in good groups and bad groups, in groups and out groups. It's not about confirming our bias. It is about awakening our hearts to the deeper covenant that we all belong to each other. And so I speak this word knowing that this is happening and that this spiritual revelation is taking place through this election, is taking place through this service, through this day, through the hearts and minds of those who are listening, and through the pattern and the vibration that is now resonating throughout this land. So for this and more, I give great thanks. I release it, and I simply allow it to be. And so it is. Peace and blessings.
Oh my goodness, Reverend David, what a powerful sermon. Thank you so much for reminding us that we all can be compassionate conduits in this wonderful thing called life. Right now, we're going to do our affirmative grateful giving. So please join me as I say these words. As you see the poster next to me, it shows you all the ways that you can give to this wonderful community. So if you feel spiritually fed, please, we appreciate you. We love you, and we thank you. So join me now as I say, we live in a universe of abundance. As I freely and joyfully give, I join in the divine flow, and all that I share with life returns to me multiplied abundantly. And so it is. Namaste.